It's Troy Ruckert from Innovator Unleashed, bringing another video, another step towards product development. So far we've talked about questions, talked about identifying that problem. Now we're going to talk about research. Now most people, when they think of research, they think of people with glasses and lots of pens and paper and the deep recesses of an academic library. Now, while that is a type of research, that's not what I'm expecting from you. The reason for research being essential for your product success is because you need to know whether there's existing products. That's one of the aspects of research that's required. Also, existing demand. You need to find out if people are actually interested in what you're creating. There's nothing worse than spending tons of time, especially when it's a passion of yours, into creating a product or a process, and then no one wants to listen to you. You got to make sure there's demand. And then also, you want your product to be awesome. You want it to rock. That requires you to research all the different facets of that product so that you can make it ideal for that customer of yours. Now, I had an interesting experience when it comes to studying. One of the ways of studying is to actually go to classes, whether that's at school or at work. In this case, I went to a radar class where I work currently, which is a company that focuses on radar systems. Now, it was really an interesting class. However, at the very beginning of the course, when I was trying to take notes, there's certain terms that were coming up. Certain terms like synthetic aperture, bins, fast time, side lobes. I am an engineer, but those terms are probably as foreign to you as they were for me at that time. So I was trying to take notes. I'm pretty good at being able to capture most ideas or concepts that people talk about. But when it starts going over my head, I tend to start writing down as many words as I possibly can. And what results is I focus on writing down words instead of understanding. And I found myself at one or two of those classes coming away thinking, I have no idea if I learned anything. Then I learned that I needed to take a step back. I needed to be able to build on what I did understand in order to create more understanding in the future. In other words, I decided I needed to cut out some of that information and try and focus on the bigger picture. Now, Tony Krasnick, a study expert, said, "What's really important is that you have control over what information gets lost and what gets retained. You need to be selective in what you're trying to retain. That's the key to understanding the concepts that you learn, especially when they're unfamiliar." Now, it's really an excellent technique to try and apply when you're learning a subject, especially when there's lots of information flying at you a little quicker than you can, is the 80-20 rule. Now, this principle talks about that 20% of your effort will result in 80% of the effectiveness. So if you take that into a context of studying, you need to focus on those really essential core principles so that you can get the vast majority of the information that's required for a successful product. So remember that. A small portion of what you tend to do will result in the most effective results. Now, another couple questions that help you when you're studying is, what do you know? First, establish where you are at. If you know where you're at, it's a lot easier to move forward. And of course, what do you think you know? That's the trickier one. If you think you know what you're doing and you are based on a lot of false principles, it's really hard to unlearn things, especially when you've tried to learn more additional principles on top of something that was already wrong. So try and vet out what you think you know before you really dive into studying a subject. And then also, who might know what you know? Who are the people around you that may know more about the subject than you do? Now, it's really interesting because often you don't want to search for the people that you know have an absolutely great knowledge about the subject. You just are looking for people to point you in the right direction. It's wonderful in the engineering field. That's constantly what you're doing. You're asking questions, and then they say, oh, I don't know about that, but so-and-so knows some of those answers. They can give you more information about that subject. So yeah, so you're looking for people that can point you in the right direction if they can't give you that information directly. So yeah, people that you can ask, of course, work, at home, at church, any organizations, any social groups that you belong in. Really anybody, when you first start researching, can be valuable. You have no idea how many resources are floating around you that you are not aware of. So yeah, so many other areas that you can also look, of course, is online libraries. For me, I have some mechanical engineering sites, some membership systems from organizations there that have some great libraries when it comes to hard engineering information. So online libraries, our local library has some fantastic resources that most people don't know about. And search engines, of course, which is what we tend to jump to first. The biggest warning on that one is you can tend to get a lot of information overload. But yes, of course, you're going to eventually will go that direction. And then, of course, there's this thing called the library. It has brick and mortar, has librarians there. Librarians especially are an underutilized resource. So yeah, try and go to an actual library if that's available in your area. So yeah, so with this research information that you have now, your challenge is to go and to find some actual people that you can talk to face to face and ask them about that subject, about that problem that you're researching, about that product that you're developing. Ask people questions and see where they take you. Perhaps they have background you are completely unaware of. Or they can just send you to another person that does have that information you're looking for. But yeah, I challenge you to act and take and do that research. That's going to help you push your products along. Thank you. This is Troy Ruckert with Innovator Unleashed. We'll talk to you soon.